Yeah. So how did you get into the whole, like, how did you learn, about stopping cuts, dealing with cuts?
It was funny because when I had my school of kickboxing, I was still involved in boxing, right? But I went to Richmond, California. Bone Crusher Smith fought Marvis Frazier in boxing, and I went there as a fan and still learning, trying to be a cutman. I was working still at the amateur level, and this guy did a good job on cuts, and I went over there after the fights, and I say, "Hey, man, you did a nice job. I'm trying to learn to be a cutman. Can you tell me what you did?" And he says, "Fuck you." He says, "I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me." And he walked away. I felt about big, man. And but it just emphasized that I was never going to be like him. But that was, I learned on my own, watching other guys. There's no schools. There's no nobody. These guys thought it was a secret. So I basically learned in the trenches, But I read up some books on some veins, on bleeding, and what's the best way to, to coagulate it, and what products to use, and the commissions in the United States, for the most part, the adrenaline chloride 1/1000. That's what you use in the swab. That closes up the blood vessels, so that's a vessel constrictor. And the other two, which are thrombin and avatine, are coagulants. And very seldomly do we even use those. But those are the only things authorized. And then Quick Aid, which is 100% natural. It's a seaweed base. And you just put it on the cut, and it dehydrates the blood, and it stops it from bleeding. So, but now I know the game, and Eugene, now that I know the game, I go back on what this guy said, and there's no secret to what we do. It's all based on technique. And, you're talking about some guys get squeamish. I get doctors, nurses, EMTs, paramedics, housewives, guys. Everybody sees what I do as a cutman. Everybody wants to be a cutman. And they ask me what they have to do. So here's what I tell them. And Chewy, if you're going to be a fighter, you got to spend hours and days and weeks and months and years in the gym, working with the fighters, donating your time, wrapping their hands, getting their confidence, working the corner, building yourself up to slowly working on cuts. Because now I do seminars. Now I've put videos out only because of what this guy had told me, that I said I'd never be like him. And it's funny because I go back to Open with Andre Ward, which was the middleweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
Retired undefeated. I went back home to work some fights, and now him and his son want to take pictures with me, So I have victory within myself, and I've told that story probably 100 times, but I've never thrown his name out because, that wasn't important, but that motivation that he gave me was. So, could have threw his name out, but I didn't.
Yeah. It's interesting how that happens sometimes. I feel like, certain people respond differently to different stimuluses, but, the negative sometimes, like someone telling you to basically kick rocks when you're asking them for a little bit of a hand up, sometimes can, like you said, can motivate you, be like, I'm going to be really good at this, and I'm going to not be like you. Because you think about, like, with fighting growing, there has to be someone like you, like a, kind of like in older times, like a tribe would have the elder who would then show the other warriors how to be those things. And like you said, you got to be that guy so that you can show other people. And when it boils down to it, there's technique. And then, like you said, there's repetition. You got to be in there rapping, doing all the work, getting the technique down.
Yeah, 100%. No different than what you do as a fighter. The same steps that you do to perfect what you do, whatever technique, it's all on seconds, it's all on positioning, it's all on timing. It's the same stuff, man. And as long as you understand each cut, where it's at, and what kind of cut it is, and whether the fighter's taking ibuprofen or aspirin, thins out the blood, those are all the things that you have to work on. But I agree. And you're talking about, let me throw another story out regarding this guy. There was a guy years ago, when I lived in the Bay Area, he was always there in the gyms all the time, but never really being one of the guys that did things. You know how they are. Anyway, I went to go see a workout. Reddick Bowe was fighting Evander Holyfield at Caesar's Palace, and I just moved to Las Vegas, and I ran into Eric at the workouts, and he's sitting next to me and my wife, and we're talking, and as he leaves, he puts his hand on my leg, and he says, "Whatever you do, I'm going to do better," right? And he left, and I was looking, and I said, "Damn, what was this?"
Wow.
So anyway, last week I did an interview, and he was one of the co-hosts, but he's still the same. Eric has really done nothing and really shouldn't have been a co-host. But at that time, I could have busted his balls and said, "You know what? Let me tell you a story about Eric. Here's what he told me, and And but I said, you know what? That's not important, you know. But I will. Another story that motivated me is Randall Cunningham. He's the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. I did a show here in Las Vegas when I still lived in the Bay Area. Dennis Electro fought. And me and my three brothers were talking to Randall Cunningham. And we were nobody. I was still Jacob. I wasn't even Stitch at that time. And one down King's guys comes and says, hey, Randall, I need to talk to you. And he says, you know what? Hold on. Let me finish talking to these guys. Man, I never felt so good in my life, man. I felt important. And he's a pastor here in Las Vegas, and I've never met him. But when I do meet him, I'm going to let him know that, you know what? This is how I treat the fans, because this is the way you treated me, you know, is those little guys are the most important people that have your back. Try to throw those stories out, man.
Yeah. No, they're good stories, man. And have you had a moment, you know, because obviously you do seminars and you teach other people the craft that you've developed, right, and that you've perfected. Have you ever like gotten someone come back to you from your seminars and be like, dude, like that thing you showed, I was treating this guy's cut, or I was wrapping this guy's hand, or, you know, kind of like I guess you take a testimonial feedback from someone saying, dude, this was awesome. It helped out so much. Thank you. That kind of thing.
Oh, of course. It's nice, you know, to get those kind of compliments. And, you know, the first video I put out was giving the fighter one more round, showing how to wrap hands and the basic techniques on working cuts, right? So at least, you know, because my thinking, Chewy and Eugene, is a trainer would show a fighter how to fight, but nobody shows a trainer how to take care of the fighter. And that's my job, right? And but yeah, I've gotten guys where I walk into a dressing room at fights, and the guy's wrapping hands. He goes, hey, man, I learned how to wrap hands watching your videos. Thanks, you know. Hey, man, I worked on this cut. I did what you did. And, you know, and that's a good feeling, man, when they come up and they mention that.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I've even had guys on Twitter and Facebook that they have somehow an injury, or one of their kids got injured, and they show me, here's what Stitch did, here's what I did. You know, so,
yeah.
You know, so people have paid attention.